So, have you ever felt like you're just drowning in complexity, like constantly wading through steps and jargon and just
Mhm.
stuff trying to get to what you actually need to do?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. It feels like the default mode sometimes, doesn't it? Whether it's work or tech or even just trying to figure out your schedule.
Right. And what if the best way forward, the clearest path, was actually simpler? Like radically simpler.
It's a powerful idea. We tend to think complexity equals sophisticated, but often it's just noise. It gets in the way.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, this concept of radical simplicity. And it's not just, keep it simple. It's way deeper than that. It's an intentional approach.
Really intentional and impactful. We've seen it transform massive global companies and also how people approach building technology.
So to really unpack this, we've got insights from two really interesting sources today. First up, we're looking at the book Radical Simplicity by Ken Allen. He's the CEO who famously turned DHL Express around.
Yeah, an incredible story there. And then we'll switch gears and look at tech through an article called Radical Simplicity in Technology. This is by Stefan Schmidt, who's a former CTO in software dev.
Two very different worlds, global logistics and software code.
Exactly. So our mission for you today is to pull out the core ideas, the real essence of radical simplicity from both these contexts.
And hopefully you can see how maybe, just maybe, it could apply to challenges you're facing in work or, even just life.
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dig in. And it starts with, honestly, a mind-boggling situation at DHL Express. The shipping giant, the ads, ain't no mountain high enough. Huge revenues, like 14 billion a year on average.
Yeah, a household name, global brand recognition.
But for years, they just couldn't make a profit consistently. Can you paint a picture how bad it actually got?
It's almost hard to believe, right?
Yeah.
Founded way back in '69, but profitability was always elusive. By 2002, they were losing 150 million euros a year. Okay, that's bad. And it got worse. By 2008, with the financial crisis really hitting, those losses exploded to 2.2 billion. Billion with a B.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the company was basically, what, facing collapse?
Pretty much. Despite the brand, despite the scale, it was a make-or-break moment.
Enter the turnaround guy. That's Ken Allen, right? Tell us a bit about him. Yorkshire-born, son of a coal miner. Sounds like quite a character.
He really is. Rose up through the ranks, known for having, as they say, the rigor of the Germans, humor of the British, and enthusiasm of the Americans. Got nicknamed the singing CEO in China, apparently.
Huh? Okay. And Germany's #1 turnaround manager. That's quite a title.
It is. And his whole approach wasn't just about spreadsheets and cost-cutting, though that was part of it. It was built on really fundamental stuff.
Yeah.
Clarity, honesty, respect, and a deep belief in people.
And he packaged this philosophy into an acronym.
Yes, self-reflection, SELF. It was his blueprint.
Okay, let's break that down. S is for simplicity. How did he view simplicity in such a massive, complex operation? It can't just mean easy, surely.
No, definitely not easy. For him, simplicity was the architectural framework, the absolute guiding principle. It meant actively designing out complexity.
Designing it out, so stripping away the unnecessary.
Exactly. Cutting through the layers, the bureaucracy, the things that had just built up over time, forcing everyone to ask, is this truly essential, even in complex global logistics? That takes courage.
I bet. Okay, so if simplicity is the framework, what about E for execution?
Well, this follows directly, doesn't it? If things are simpler, if you understand the business and its processes more clearly,
Then executing the right things becomes easier.
precisely. He talked about the discipline to get the right things done. Simplicity brings clarity. You see what needs doing, and just as importantly, what needs stopping.
Stopping things. That's often harder than starting things.
So true. That clarity is key. Which leads us to L leadership.
Right. And he had that phrase, leadership starts at home. What was he getting at there?
It means leading yourself first. You have to embody the clarity, the focus, the values you expect from your team. It wasn't just about managing. It was about empowering everyone, being experts, being motivators, leading by example.
Makes sense. You can't ask others to be simple and focused if you're not. And the last letter, F.
F is for focus. Critically important when you're facing, a multi-billion euro loss. How do you even start?
Yeah, where do you begin?
You focus relentlessly on the short-term wins, the achievable outcomes. Keep the organization zeroed in on the main thing, as you'd say. It breaks down the overwhelming task into manageable steps. Like climbing, focus on the next handhold.
Keep the main thing the main thing. I like that. And then there's the reflection part tacked on.
Crucial. It's not just self, it's self-reflection. You have to constantly review, learn, adapt. Otherwise, the simplicity you created might become outdated. It's about staying relevant.
So simplicity, execution, leadership, focus, and then reflection. Did it work? I mean, the numbers you mentioned earlier.
Oh, it worked. Spectacularly. By 2018, DHL Express wasn't just profitable, it was earning $1.9 billion a year. A complete reversal.
That's incredible. From losing $2.2 billion to making $1.9 billion.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the money. He rolled out massive training programs like certified international specialists, building culture, and Fortune magazine named DHL the sixth best place to work globally in 2018.
From near collapse to a top global workplace. Wow.
Yeah, shows the power of that focused, simplified approach.
And he has some great one-liners encapsulating it too, didn't he? Like, don't let board meetings become board meetings.
Yeah. And the main thing when you mentioned, also the classic, revenue is vanity, EBIT is sanity, cash flow is reality.
Cuts right through the noise, doesn't it? It tells you where the real focus needs to be.
Absolutely. It's all about that radical clarity, that honesty about what truly drives success, stripping away the fluff.
So thinking about this for you, the listener, Ken Allen's principles, clarity, honesty, respect, belief in people, plus that radical simplicity of focus, execution, leadership, it feels like a powerful toolkit.
Definitely. Think about a tough problem you're dealing with. Maybe
Right.
it's work, maybe personal. How
Yep.
could stripping away the non-essential, really focusing on the core, change how you tackle it?
It's a great question. And what's really cool is seeing how these same core ideas pop up in a totally different universe.
Right. Let's switch gears completely now. From global logistics to software development.
Yeah, let's talk tech. Stefan Schmidt, former CTO developer. He argues for radical simplicity in building software.
He does. And his starting point is, well, maybe a little controversial for developers. He basically says, we like complexity. We often create it by accident.
We love complexity. Ouch, but maybe true. What kind of complexity is he talking about?
Oh, he lists, the usual suspects.
Yeah.
Complex front-end frameworks like React or Vue, all the tools needed to make them work like Webpack, Babel, TypeScript.
Okay, yeah, the build pipelines.
Right. Then on the back end, you've got microservices, maybe Kafka for events, different databases for different things like NoSQL or time series, orchestration like Kubernetes, all running on cloud platforms like AWS. Each one is powerful, sure.
But each one adds another moving part, another thing to learn, manage, potentially break.
Exactly that. And he says the hidden cost is huge. It slows development way down. It makes it tedious.
And leads to what he called shallow domains. What does that mean?
It means you spend like 80% of your time wrestling with the tools, the infrastructure, the setup, and only 20% on the actual unique problem you're supposed to be solving for the business, the IFs in your code, as he puts it.
So you're fighting the tech instead of solving the problem. He gives an example, right? Adding a simple field to a form.
Yeah. Something like adding a birthday field, which sounds trivial, ends up taking hours because you have to touch all these different layers and complex systems. It's deeply inefficient.
That really hits home. And he quotes Rachel Kroll, "Code runs on people. Please keep it simple." What's the idea there?
It's brilliant. Before code runs on a server, it has to run in your head. You need to understand it, reason about it, hold it all mentally.
So complex systems mean a huge cognitive load for the developers.
Precisely. It takes a valuable brain space, slows you down, leads to mistakes, high costs. It's just draining.
Okay, so that's the problem. What's his solution? What does radical simplicity in technology look like?
For him, it's about having as few components and moving parts as possible. It's a conscious choice. And crucially, reusing technology for different jobs instead of always reaching for a new specialized tool.
Reusing tech, like his example with Postgres, that was eye-opening.
Yeah, really powerful. Instead of separate systems, Postgres for the main database, maybe Druid or something for event storage, Redis for caching, RabbitMQ for messaging, Elastic for search.
Which sounds like a pretty standard modern stack for many.
Oh, right. He says, why not just use a single hosted Postgres instance for all of that?
Sure.
Database, full-text search, HTML caching, publish-subscribe messaging, even event sourcing with extensions like TimescaleDB.
Wow. One tool doing the job of 5 or 6 complex distributed systems.
Potentially, yes. Obviously depends on scale, but the principle is push your existing tools further before adding new ones.
And the benefits he claims are pretty compelling.
Hugely. Your team gets deeper knowledge of the core tech, you move faster, new developers get up to speed quicker, fewer things break. No nightmare upgrade cycles for dozens of different frameworks.
And he mentioned developer happiness, getting into flow state.
Yeah, which is massive for productivity and just, well, enjoying your work. If you're not constantly fighting fires or wrestling with tooling, you can actually focus on building cool things. You get into that zone.
And this isn't just a theory, right? He mentioned companies actually doing this.
Definitely. Basecamp, who created Ruby on Rails, they built their Hey email service with plain old HTML over the wire, no fancy JavaScript frameworks like React. Super simple, very effective.
And Stack Overflow, the massive Q&A site for developers.
Yeah, runs on a surprisingly small amount of actual hardware. Uses Microsoft SQL Server. No GraphQL, no React, no Kafka, no Kubernetes. It's almost ironic, given how much advice about those complex tools is on Stack Overflow.
Huh, that is ironic. So the idea is grow with simplicity. Start simple, add complexity only when absolutely necessary.
Exactly. Extend what you have first. Add moving parts slowly, deliberately, only when the need is proven. It lines up perfectly with lean startup thinking on the business side and Scrum for process. Minimal viable product, minimal viable architecture.
So why should founders really grab onto this? What's the pitch?
For founders, it's simple. Faster feature delivery, fewer developers needed, at least initially, quicker pivots and adaptation, lower costs, higher chance of success, frankly. It stops the architecture from killing the lean dream.
And for developers, some might think simpler tech means less interesting work.
He argues the opposite. The real challenge, the interesting work, should be solving deep user problems, building amazing features, not wrestling with a tech zoo.
A tech zoo? Love that.
Right. It's about deep domains, deep understanding of the tech you do use, higher quality code because it's simpler to reason about, and ultimately feeling more in control. His conclusion: radical simplicity wins.
That's a strong statement. It really makes you pause and think, doesn't it? For anyone listening, maybe in tech, maybe not, where might you be adding accidental complexity in your own projects, even hobbies?
Yeah, could embracing this kind of thinking actually speed you up, make things less frustrating, maybe even more fun?
Okay, so let's try and bring these two strands together. We've got Ken Allen at DHL using simplicity for strategic business turnaround, and Stefan Schmidt using it for architectural sanity in software.
Two very different contexts, but the core message seems remarkably similar, doesn't it? Clarity, focus, ruthlessly cutting out the non-essential.
It really does, and maybe that highlights the radical part of it. Why is simple so radical?
Well, like we said earlier, it often goes against the grain, right? The conventional wisdom is often more is more. More features, more tech, more complex strategies for complex problems.
Yeah. It takes real discipline to resist that pull, to question assumptions and say, no, let's strip this back.
Exactly. It requires a conscious effort, maybe even pushing back against expectations sometimes.
So the big takeaway here, whether you're running a multi-billion-euro company or building an app, radical simplicity is about identifying the absolute core.
Yeah. Nailing down the real problem, or the main thing, and then focusing all energy there while actively removing everything else that doesn't directly serve that purpose.
It's not about being simplistic or dumbing things down. It sounds more like being profoundly effective.
That's a great way to put it. Understanding what's truly essential versus what's just. Overhead, noise, accidental complexity.
So if this approach can turn around a giant like DHL and make building software faster and more joyful, it really makes you wonder.
What accidental complexity might be hiding in plain sight in your world, in your daily routines, your projects, how you make decisions?
Are there unnecessary steps, tools, layers you've just accepted without questioning, things that just sort of crept in?
And maybe the challenge is, what would a radical simplicity approach look like if you applied it right there?
So the next time you hit a complex problem, maybe just pause, take a breath, and ask yourself that question.
How can I approach this with radical simplicity?
You might be genuinely surprised by the clarity and maybe even the power you find when you cut through the noise.